Good evening, folks, and welcome to the first of my videos regarding the medic in Wildstar. I'm going to be doing a bunch of guides talking about amps, skills, builds, all kinds of stuff to do with Wildstar, with the Sleeping Dragons, which is our guild on Contagion. We are currently pretty much the biggest guild right there, so let's jump straight into it. I'm going to do the first video going through every single medic skill that we have and talking about its strengths, weaknesses, where it's good, stuff like that. So I hope you enjoy. Thanks, guys. Right, guys, let's get straight into going through all of the medic abilities. We'll be going through all the assault, support, and utility abilities, and talking about their strength, weaknesses, and all that stuff. So let's start off first with Discharge. Discharge is a builder for the assault spec, pretty much for the assault tier, doing some okay damage every 5 seconds. It's very similar to the emission, but the damage version of it. The tier 4 is actually pretty good. Deals additional damage ticks when hit with all the ticks. It's quite decent. You pretty much want this if you're running a damage build. It's going to be your builder, it's your base, it's your core kind of ability. But the tier 8, gain a second power charge each tick. If you're using something like a lot of Quantum Cascade, that could potentially be really good if used with that. Apart from that, it's not necessary to take tier 8 as much as emission is, but I'll get into that in a bit. So that's the kind of thing we're looking for. Gamma Rays. Gamma Rays is the first assault ability builder. First ability that uses actuators, should I say. From that, it does okay damage. It's better single target like stuff than AoE, because it deals 1,000 technology damage, but with 3 beams. So if you hit more with 3 beams, that's 3k. This is obviously, I'm currently a support spec, so these numbers are not real. I am 50, so these numbers are not assault spec numbers. So you obviously get more. So every third casted instant does not trigger a global cooldown for tier 4. That's pretty decent. And landing a hit on a foe with all beams builds 1 actuator. That's kind of good. So it's built for single target. So potentially, if you went up to tier 8 with single target, I don't see why you would, because there are better spenders within the medic assault tree than Gamma Rays. Especially, you don't want to be using this for PvP either. It's too narrow. Yeah, you'll do okay damage to a couple of people potentially, but it's better to take a more all-rounded AoE. Nullifier. Nullifier is something used earlier on. It just places a nice field on the ground. It's okay. It's not very used that much in PvP. It's not used much in PvE. There are other things you can take better. So it's just a field. If you create a tier 4, you can create 2 nullifier fields. Take damage as if they were standing in both fields. That's kind of nice. And deal more damage to 5 foes at the target location if you use nullifier while at full actuators. So it's very kind of situational. There's no reason why you would really take this over some other abilities, but it's still good. It's good for PvE, just taking mobs, just pulling a lot of stuff and then stacking them up and then using nullifier on them. So you could do a fair amount of damage that way. Fissure. Fissure is a great ability. It puts a debuff on them, which reduces their technology resistance. Pretty much all the damage that Medic does is technology based, so it's very good. If paired with a tier 4, so here we go, tier 4, if used while at full actuators, Fissure causes your next Gamma Rays or Quantum Cascade to refund 1 actuator. So if you combine it with Quantum Cascade, Cascade's 4 as well, increase channel time, and for an additional tick with no actuator cost, you can spam Quantum Cascade really fast. Also, I suppose you could tier that with tier 8, get more power charges, so you could just basically spam Quantum Cascade like all day long and just chill with it. That's why Quantum Cascade is a better builder, a better spender than Gamma Rays. But yeah, Fissure, the tier 8 is not really worth it. Deal extra damage for each foe after landing each with all ticks. So it's just 3 tick or 5 ticks. Sorry. It is 3 ticks. That's not worth taking the tier 8, but the tier 4 is definitely worth it if you're taking something like Quantum Cascade. Devastator probes. Devastator probes are great. Very good tick damage. Really good. If hit with Fissure or Collider, really good. So you can combine it with Fissure for the tier 4 where it blows them up, and obviously because they're a fairly short 10-second cooldown, which is really good, so you can pop it, wait till it's at the last tick and then go boom and blow it up, and then you pop it back on and then boom again. It could do a lot more damage. Also, it's very good at AoE if you turn up to tier 8. I would probably only put it to tier 4 if you are using this ability. Moving on to Quantum Cascade, which we talked about a little bit before. Deal 1,064 damage to every 5 foes every 0.5 seconds. So it basically uses a lot of actuators, but if you combine it with the Fisher Tier 4 and the Tier 4 in Quantum Cascade, it could do amazing stuff. Landing a hit with all ticks refunds 2 actuators, going to occur every 10 seconds. That could be worthwhile taking, the Tier 8, but I'd probably only stick to the Tier 4 for Quantum Cascade. And I think a lot of medics are using this in PvP because it is quite good, because you can just jump in the middle of the fight and go boom, 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 Quantum Cascade. So it kind of works quite nicely. Collider, this is pretty much my favorite damage ability. You have 2 charges. It deals, it's like almost like a shotgun kind of thing. Double kind of shotgun blast, if you will. It deals 729 damage twice to 5 foes. If they're below 30% health, they take more. The Tier 4 is amazing at PvP. Below 70% health is amazing. The Tier 8 isn't that good because the cooldown is pretty short and it's only a 10-second recharge for both ability charges. It's not 10 seconds per ability charge, so use both of them within 10 seconds so you can get the full use out of it. I use this a lot for leveling. It's really, really good for leveling. But for the most part, it's just a nice, solid damage dealer, especially PvP. Atomize. Atomize is on if you land a critical hit, so obviously you'd be pretty much running a crit build. You take full advantage of this. It's only a 7-second cooldown, so you must have a decent amount of crit. Most of the time you will. If you have 20% or above crit, you should be fine using this skill. Deal a lot of damage to foes and 50% chance to build 1 actuator as well. So you can use it as a builder and stuff. Pierce is 18% armor, the Tier 4, which is really nice damage, really nice damage. But then the Tier 8, just a little bit of a tick damage after you've used it, which is okay. But I stick to the Tier 4 again. Sometimes the Tier 4 are just better and stuff like this. So yeah, dematerialize. Purging buffs. So purging a buff grants 20% chance to build 1 actuator, Tier 4. Applies overload for 8 seconds. Overload shields temporarily deactivated. This could be a very, very good PvP skill, and I'm considering using it in my healing utility spec for PvP right now. So dematerialize is a really nice ability. It doesn't do that much damage, but it purges 2 buffs. It's only on a 7-second cooldown. There's no prerequisites for it. Just blast out and boom, 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 boom. So it's pretty good. I'm going to be probably using it in my 2v2, 3v3 spec. Probably not in the 5v5, but definitely in the 2v2, 3v3, because purging those 2 buffs could just mean win. Playing it to Tier 8, because Overload is really powerful. It shuts down medics really hard because of using a lot of shield surge. So it shuts down medics really hard with that. So that's also good. Annihilation Field. Annihilation Field. I use this a lot when leveling. It's not the best. It's really cool, though. It's just a small field that only lasts for a couple of seconds, but it does a pretty crazy amount of damage. The Tier 4 creates an additional field. It creates it next to it. I don't think they stack if someone stood in both of them at the same time, if they're big and fat, then it doesn't quite work, I don't think. But each tick of discharge reduces the cooldown of Annihilation by 1.25 seconds. It's okay if you could combine it with the stun utility, where if you stun them in a field, they're stunned for longer. You could work it and combine it with Annihilation in PvP. It could work better in PvE, but again, there are other things you want to kind of take for single target and AoE damage potentially. So that's all the assault abilities. Move on to the support abilities. This is where I have most knowledge about. This is what I've played the most so far. Emission, your basic spammable heal. It's really good. So at the moment I'm storing 658 health to 4 allies and grab 1 stack of power charge every 0.41 seconds. So it's a little bit slower than discharge. But the Tier 4 and Tier 8 are both amazing. The Tier 4 is pretty much mandatory if you're running a heal spec at all in any shape or form. No focus cost below 250 focus. When you're healing, you run out of focus quite a lot and quite fast. So that is just perfect. It's really good. Moving on to the Tier 8. The Tier 8 restores an additional 996 health. So it's really good. It almost restores like it's 1.5 ticks, pretty much, on top of what you're doing. And most of the time you're going to be hitting with 3 ticks. So PvP or dungeons, the Tier 8 is amazing. I'm using this as my primary heal skill within dungeons and PvP right now. So that's good. Crisis Wave. The battle is between Crisis Wave and Shield Surge right now. Crisis Wave is good. It's a very big health heal, 3.4k, especially if that crits, that's going to do a lot. Excuse me. Every 3rd cast is instant and does not trigger a global cooldown. That's quite nice, but you have to build actuators again. So it's quite nice as a burst heal. It's less focus than Shield Surge, but it's still good. Every third cast has no actuator focus cost. It seems okay, but it's just better things you could take, really. Better things you could take. That's Crisis Wave. So that's your basic spender. One of your few spenders for healing. Dual Shock. Dual Shock. I'm not sure about Dual Shock. I've tried Dual Shock in the beta quite a bit. It's on a 9-second cooldown, usable after critical hit or critical heal. Deal 2,000 damage and 3,000 health to yourself and 4 allies. It's okay. It's okay. I haven't used it because the cone is quite small, so it's kind of hard to hit most of the time. I don't think it's worth it. There's other things I'd rather put on my bar. 25% chance to build 1 actuator every 9 seconds is not good for a tier 4, really. Tier 8, convert 25% of your damage dealt to restored health to your party. Kind of nice, but again, it's not really worth the whole investment into full tier 8, so yeah. Mending Probes. Mending Probes are great. Really, really nice dot heal. The tier 4, the tier 8 is probably good in PvP if you spec it for that. So detonating probes. So tier 4 is you're landing in a heal with triage and flash. Detonates your probes to restore 50% of the probe's potential healing, consuming the probe. It's good. It's a very nice burst heal. So if you compare that with flash, the tier 4 of flash, each tick of emission reduces the cooldown of flash by 1 second. So you've got 10-second cooldown on the mending probes. Pop that, leave it up for about 5 seconds. Pop flash. By the time you come around again, flash and mending probes are off cooldown. So you pop mending probes, flash, boom, big heals. It works really well. The tier 8 is okay. It'd be better off in a raid situation or a general PvP situation. But again, it's a lot of points to spend in to get it up there. Triage, I did use Triage quite a lot. I think the healing and the shield is a bit low for what it does. Obviously, you can spam it every 7 seconds, which is kind of nice, but it only hits one person. So it's if you may be on tank healing duty, then it could work quite well. But apart from that, I wouldn't. Like, I have taken it, but between me and you, it was like either Triage or Flash, and Flash is just way better in like a PvP grounds and stuff like that. So probably best off going for that. But Triage is just good. Like the tier 4 and tier 8, every third cast builds 1 actuator, so that's like every. It's not enough. It's not enough. Like, yeah, it's just not enough like to warrant building the 1 actuator for that amount of points. Restoring additional 1,000 health, you target below 30% health. That's very situational. Again, it's not worth spending the whole to tier 8 points in it. So, but yeah, as I was saying, back to Flash. The tier 8. If you have no actuators, is very kind of situational. I kind of don't like situational things. If I do spec this, I spec all the way to tier 7 just before the top, because I don't think the 5 points are worth it for the top tier. But if you're running this, like if you're running a more heal build, with my dungeon healing build right now, I'm running Flash up to tier 7, and I'm running Mending Probes up to tier 4 in the space of my Calm and Magnetic Lockdown. I've taken those both out. So that's what I'm running in dungeons, kind of not, and it does quite well because obviously they've got the shield heal from Shield Surge and stuff. Barrier is one of your kind of oh shit buttons. It's on a 38-second cooldown with the 15% reduction in time. So restore 3,400 shield plus health every 2 seconds, which is really nice. And so it's in the very powerful fights where you're just getting completely owned by the damage. So grants 1 interrupt time with 3 allies and the target area for 1 to 10 seconds. It's quite nice. So it's only got a 28-second downtime, which isn't too bad for a kind of an oh shit button. But it is a very kind of small AoE, and you have to target it pretty quickly if you have to use it. Tier 4 grants 2 interrupt armor to allies below 70% health. That's okay. The tier 8 now always affects the caster in addition to the allies in the target area. That's kind of nice, but for the long cooldown it is, investing those points is only if you really need it, and it's probably more for a raid situation. If your tank's getting focused down or someone's getting focused down, you plonk this on them and then they survive, kind of thing. Yeah, Shield Surge is probably one of the best abilities the medic has right now. It's amazing. Deals 3. It scales with support, both the attack and the healing from it. So it deals 3k damage, technology damage to 5 foes, and restores 3.5k shield to yourself and 4 allies. Combined with some amps, which I'll show you in another video, they are incredible. This ability is incredible. The tier 4 increases shield mitigation by 25% for 8 seconds. That's amazing, and you pretty much want to get that because 25% shield mitigation, that's awesome. The tier 8 deal, the tier 8 I used a lot for leveling. Deal bonus damage to your foes if they do not heal others, and restore bonus shields if you do not attack foes. The bonus shields thing isn't worth taking, and I'll show you why in another video, because of certain amp that you take to go with Shield Surge. But the damage was really nice when fighting a lot of mobs. They did a crazy amount of damage when I was leveling towards the end, like doing 5-6k crits and things like this, just decimating foes because of that tier 8, which is really, really nice. Really, really nice. Extricate is probably one of my new favorite abilities within this medic class right now. Extricate is very undervalued right now, I think, and not underused. It's very hard to use. By no means have I mastered it. I don't see that many people using it, especially for PvP, I think. So it restores health and pulls 2 party members to you. The tier 4 and tier 8s are kind of... You don't necessarily need them. So you pull additional party member, restore some more health. It's not that much health. It's not. I don't think it's worth it for the tier 4. And the tier 8, because of I'm running mostly Shield Surge anyway. The restore other shields, there's kind of, yeah, you don't really need it, I don't think. But Extricate, the ability, the way you can use this ability is so good. So if you're in, let's say, a PvP match, for example, there are multiple ways you use it. If you're in a PvP match, you see a couple of guys, you pick out a couple of guys in the big pack that's fighting that are low health. You pull them out with it. You aim it perfectly. It's really, really difficult to aim, especially when there's a big pack. You aim it, you pull them towards you, you can heal them, you get them out of the fight. So even if they're stunned, you can still pull them towards you. They'll still be stunned when they come towards you, but they'll be out of the fight and stop getting hit. So then you can heal them up and then send them back on their merry way. Also, the bane of all healers in PvP and PvE alike is the fact that people run away from you when you're healing them, and I'm sure all healers can attest to this. So, Extricate is like a "get over here, I'm going to heal you" kind of button. So you press that, they come to you, you heal them there and then they can go back to doing whatever they're doing. So it's really, really, really awesome ability. Also, that I've been using a lot on in PvP is on the Moody Masks. So if you see the Moody Mask carrier, obviously they're running really slowly, they're getting stunned, they're getting locked down, they're getting all sorts of stuff on them. You use Urgency to jump ahead of them, you turn around, you pull, you use Extricate, you pull them towards you, you save them probably about 5 seconds walking every time you use Extricate. I can imagine some awesome cool stuff with like you have like 3 or 4 medics all lined up ready to pull the person. You just go boom, 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 and just pull the person with Extricate. I think it would be awesome to be able to do that. So Extricate, very skilled thing. It's more of a personal preference, I think, because a lot of people in PvP are using Flash, which I completely understand that people are using Flash, but I'm using Extricate instead of my Flash because it has so much utility and it's such a fun ability to use. Rejuvenator. This is the one where you have to spec into the amp tree to get. Rejuvenator is cool. It's more of a PvE thing, I think. So deploy and activate, it lasts 30 seconds at target location. First ally that walks into the activated triggers a field which restores 377 health every 0.5 seconds to allies. It's quite good. It grants 1 interrupt armor at tier 4, restores an additional health when Rejuvenator expires, which is kind of nice. But again, PvP wise, it's a little too static because PvP is all over the place. I suppose you could put it at the back before you go to the fight so people could retreat out and then go into it and heal up kind of thing. It's probably more of a dungeon thing if you are going to use it, but you have to spec a lot of stuff in the amp tree to be able to get it, even though you're kind of taking those things if you're going heal anyway. But it's a cool ability. It's a really cool ability. Right, onto the utility stuff. Paralytic Surge, basic all-round stun. It's just good. Increases stun duration by 1.37 seconds if used on a foe standing inside of one of the hostile fields under your effect of Devastator Probes. So Devastator Probes, Paralytic Surge does more stun, which is nice for PvP. So definitely on a damage spec for PvP, it would do really, really, really well. As I said before, with Annihilation Field, you pop Annihilation Field, you stun instantly. They get a longer stun. They take the full duration of Annihilation Field and do quite a bit of damage. But it is a combo that you have to set up. It is on a 26-second cooldown with the cooldown reductions done. So yeah, it's just a good all-round stun. Urgency, it should be on every medic's bar, regardless of what you're playing. It's just a staple. You need to have it. Blink forward 20 meters, gain swiftness 5 seconds, 17-second cooldown. The tier 4, break free from snares, roots, holds, and tethers is really good if you're getting snared a lot, if you're getting stuff like that. It's a good something to take. Tier 8, after blinking, deal damage to 5 foes and the some sort of health. It's okay. I wouldn't bother taking it. Tier 4 is probably the maximum you need to take it because the increased movement speed per tier upgrade isn't that. You don't really need it. But urgency, everyone should have. Restrictor, I played a lot with this within the beta. It was really fun, but it's not something I'd kind of put on my bar at the moment because it doesn't really do that much. It's a good escape mechanism, so you could like urgency, turn around, restrictor. You could blast backwards because it jumps you back and places a big like field in front of you that slows people. Increase charge count to 2, so you could like double back. It's a good escape more than anything. So I suppose you could run this over urgency if you just wanted it to use it just for escape, which is kind of nice, or to slow down a moody mass carrier or anything like that, which is kind of alright. The snare applies from restrictor now lasts additional 2.5 seconds if foe moves outside of the field. That's okay. If you're going to spec it, I'd only spec it up to the tier 4. But yeah, it has 2 charges, but it has an 18-second cooldown with the tier 4, so it's still good, it's still okay. I don't really use it right now, but yeah. Antidote, your basic debuff from your allies. It's going to be used a lot in raiding, most likely, to debuff people and stuff like this in the dungeons. Spending a debuff with antidote refund the focus cost, which is alright, but that doesn't matter because the focus cost is only 30. It is quite expensive, but if you're going to need it, if you're going to be using it a lot, then tier 4 may be useful. It's very kind of situational. Tier 8 dispels 4 debuffs. That's quite nice. But again, unless it's needed, I wouldn't bother specking it. Like, I'd just take it as is, I think. Protection probes. You have to spec for this within the amp points. Protection probes is also a must-have for any medic with pretty much any build. Protection probes reduces damage taken by 17% base. Putting the 3 points into it to get up to 20% is completely worth it. It's a 17-second cooldown. It's only got 7-second downtime. If you tier it right in the amps as well, you can make it so it gives out 1 protection armor. Stun protection armor, which is incredibly good. The tier 4 grant a nimble dash regen, 35% negligible. The tier 8 I have tried, restore shield every 2 seconds. It's not enough to be worthwhile. It might potentially be in a dungeon situation because if you spec it right to the top, you get 25% reduction, but for all those points it's not worth it. You might as well just put the 3 points in it, get to the 20% damage reduction, and it's just amazing. Recharge, most people will be using this unless you've got the runes on your gear to be able to get the focus recharge, and if your focus management is perfect, you may not need this. But for the most part, healing, especially when you're healing, when you're damaging, it's not much of a problem. When you're healing, your focus runs out very quickly, quite quickly. So especially if it's an intense fight or intense PvP or whatever, it runs out fairly quickly. So using recharge on cooldown is just, it's worth it. It's completely worth it. It also gives you empower, insult power, and a support power 15% of your current maximum for 10 seconds, which is great. It's only on a 30-second cooldown, so there's a 30-second downtime or so. So it's pretty good. So it gives you, it's more of a cooldown stuff. The tier 4 cast time reduced by 1%. Sorry, 1 second. So it's a 1 second cast. It is quite a long cast, but you kind of do it as you're running between fights in PvP, or you're gonna have you make some space for yourself by doing a big burst heal, then you cast recharge, make some space for yourself. Affects 2 allies within 8 meters. If other people are having problems, potentially in a raid group, one of you could potentially run this. If you're running like the healers together, you get healers group up, and then you pop that, and then everyone kind of gets it, which is could be kind of nice. But recharge is just great. Empowering probes, it's probably going to be for more raid stuff. It grants increased damage dealt by 10% for 10 seconds. You can spec up into it, but it's not as potent as the protection probes, because you only get 11.9% per thing, so you only get 0.6% damage per point spent. Increase critical hit chance and strike through chance by 3%. Again, this could be a raid thing. If you're running a damage spec, you're probably going to want to run this in a raid or dungeon situation. Just to give yourself that more damage. Increase duration by 3 seconds, so you could increase it up to 13 seconds with only a 5-second downtime, which could be, 4-second downtime, which could be incredibly good. So you could do that and tear it all the way up, because at the top tier, you get 15% extra damage, which is quite a lot overall, especially over 5 members in a dungeon. It's pretty damn powerful. So for PvP, you could run it in PvP. I have run it a little bit just for fun. If you say that guy needs to nuke down in some of the smaller fights, especially in 5v5 arena, I think this will be used a lot. Because if you're like, right, we're bursting that guy down, pop empowering pros, boom, blast him down, kind of thing. Magnetic lockdown, this is what I've been experimenting with recently. It's really, really good. Snares and roots are probably some of the best CCs in the game right now, as opposed to stuns, because they last longer. So this deals damage. The damage is negligible. Don't need to care about that. But I'm currently specking it, and I would advise everyone else, if you are using this, spec it to tier 4. In a PvP situation, it's amazing. You probably don't want to use this as a PvE situation at all, really, because there's no need for CC. Magnetic lockdown has no cast time and will not trigger global cooldown for 5 seconds after being critically hit. In PvP, you get a critically hit all the time. It's always up. Every 13 seconds, it's always up. So every 13 seconds, you can do an AoE 4-second route. You can run this without this, like completely just base if you wish, but I like to run it with the tier 4 because obviously I'm healing in Battlegrounds. So when I'm healing and stuff like that, I'm getting the heals out, make sure everyone's okay, and I need to take a 1.25 second cast plus a global cooldown to be able to cast this. When this is like this, I can just cast it on the fly with no global cooldown, boom, and I can go straight back to healing. Roots can win games. Like if you get a good root on a pack of people, everyone blows the cooldowns on them, they're dead. Roots are amazingly powerful in PvP right now, and I'd recommend using this over Paralytic Surge if you're going to use one or the other within a PvP spec. Calm, your basic CC breaker. I wouldn't bother putting it to tier 4. You gain a buff which restores shields when you retake direct damage. If you're running a Moody Mass carrying build on a pre-made battleground, yes, this could work really well with the tier 4. Tier 8, permanently lower your threat against pacified foes. That's if you're taking too much aggro in a dungeon, but I don't see why you would want to spec up to tier 8 in Calm. There's no point in really putting any more points into it because it only adds the pacify for a little bit longer. I wouldn't bother with it personally, but it's okay. Filled probes. Filled probes is a cool sounding ability. The AoE is way too small for what it does. From what I've seen, so creates field last 10 seconds. Reduces incoming healing by 20%, which is kind of good, and reduces incoming healing by 25%. It's quite nice, the abilities. If it was more of a debuff that you plonk down in an area or something like that, then it would be better. But especially you want to be using this in like PvP. PvP, people don't stand still long enough. They'll see a big red telegraph and jump out of it. It's not going to happen. It's not that big either. So you can spec it to deal damage at tier 4. You can spec it to deal even more damage. So it's okay. It's kind of more of a nuke down thing. If you combine it with Paralytic Surge, if you were like, right, let's nuke down this guy, you used Magnetic Lockdown, you put the field probes on them, you stun them after that, you could get some nice damage on them, because the tier 4 could be quite nice with deal damage to foes that damage allies standing inside the probes. That could work. Who knows? I've probably something I might try in PvP, because if you could get that combo off, it might be better within a 2v2 or 3v3 situation, potentially in the arenas. It could potentially be better doing that way, but for the most part, I wouldn't use it for the most part. It's got a cool animation though, so you should just definitely check that out. So thank you for that, guys. That's it for me for this video. I will be making more. The next one I will go through pretty much most of the amp tiers on the healer side and the assault side as well. So thank you for watching, guys. I really, really appreciate it, and I will see you soon. Cheers, guys.